Today's headline is Heroes of the West, Scouts and Fighters at the Cattlemen's Convention. The subheadline says, Leading a band of desperados into an ambush, a corner robber's hold, front general Porter's speech, Indian eloquence kills a resolution, Lycan's ride. It says, among the delegates to the National Cattlemen's Convention, which has just finished its session in St. Louis, were some of the most celebrated frontiersmen in the United States. Many of them were famous as scouts, fighters, and detectives, and some of them had figured out the East in politics or business before taking up their present pursuit. W. H. Llewellyn would be a noticeable figure anywhere. He is unusually tall, magnificent physique, and his carriage is such as to impress the observer with the belief that he has been a participant in stirring events. Probably no man on the border has a better record than he. More than a dozen desperados have registered oaths that they will have his life, and everyone believes that he will yet pay the penalty for his devotion to law and order. When the stock raisers on the Niobrara found the depredations of the Middleton gang unbearable, they made several unsuccessful efforts to hunt down the thieves. Discovering the names of the men instrumental in this pursuit, the chief outlaw sent them letters warning them that if they ever appeared on their ranches, he would cut their heads off and forward them to Omaha to be exhibited on poles. This made the stockmen furious, and they became more determined than ever to effect his capture. Llewellyn had some local reputation in the North Platte and Deadwood country as a detective. He had made several difficult arrests and on one occasion had killed 2 Black Hills stage robbers. Wishing to obtain his views, the stockmen sent for him and he unfolded a plan of operations which was very satisfactory. He proposed to take 1 or 2 trusty men with him and join the outlaw band, learn their haunts, and at the proper time seize the leader. In all previous attempts to capture Middleton or any of his party, it had been found that any ordinary posse recruited in the country adjacent was of no avail, for Confederates of the outlaw would invariably be found among the number, and no plan of operations could be kept a secret. Llewellyn proposed to pick his own men, have arrangements made with the troops stationed in the vicinity to give him assistance when he needed it, and place no dependence whatever on the settlers. With an order from W. A. Paxton of Omaha to his ranch foreman for horses, Llewellyn, accompanied by William Hazen and Charles Sweezy, started out properly disguised. Stopping at Paxton's ranch, they produced their order, obtained the horses, and under cover of night rode rapidly toward the North Loop. When they arrived at Buffalo Bill's ranch, Sweezy left them, and Llewellyn and Hazen proceeded a few miles further and met Middleton and his entire gang. Representing themselves as fugitives from Wyoming, they had no trouble in disarming any suspicion the desperados may have had, and were cordially welcomed as members of the fraternity. For more than 2 months they remained with the party, participating in their robberies and learning their habits and hiding places. In the meantime, Llewellyn had found an opportunity of communicating with Paxton by means of Sweezy, and of explaining to him his plans. He directed Paxton to send a trusty man to an appointed place, where he was to lie in wait until he could get Middleton there, and then, at a signal, the outlaw was to be taken dead or alive. Mr. Paxton selected for this errand Bill Likens, an inspector of the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, who went to the designated spot and waited there in the brush several days. At length the party appeared, Middleton riding ahead, Llewellyn and Hazen coming next, and 7 or 8 desperados following. Llewellyn says they always observed this order when on the march, as if determined to be on the safe side respecting the newcomers. Coming up to the place where Likens was concealed with a rifle and 2 revolvers, Llewellyn gave the signal. At that instant, Middleton's horse shot and threw the outlaw, but the latter was on his feet in an instant with a revolver in each hand, pouring shot into the bushes. Likens' rifle missed fire and he hugged the ground while Llewellyn and Hazen, riding rapidly to one side, opened on the other thieves. Hazen soon fell with 3 bullets in him, but Likens, getting his weapons in order, opened a rapid, galling fire from the bushes. With 3 or 4 of their number wounded, the desperados, including Middleton, wheeled and darted off, pursued by their 2 assailants. After a little, Llewellyn gave up the chase, carried Hazen to the nearest ranch, and then made all possible haste to Fort Robinson, where he obtained a detail of cavalrymen. Once on Middleton's trail, they pursued him to the Niobrara, and finding the outlaw's father, made him conduct them to the gang's hiding place. After 2 days and nights in the saddle, they came upon the party in camp and at once opened fire. Middleton and 2 others fell at the first volley, and the former's wife, who had previously been unobserved, came running out begging for her husband's life. While this parley was in progress, the uninjured members of the party took to their horses and made off, but Middleton was taken prisoner, and in the course of time was sentenced to the penitentiary. After disposing of Middleton, Llewellyn followed three of the most desperate members of his gang thousands of miles through the territories, and at last cornered them in Minnesota, where after a stubborn resistance they were captured. Llewellyn is now agent of the Mescaleros Indians, a part of the Apache tribe, and finds time to devote to cattle raising for his own benefit. David J. Cook, superintendent of the Rocky Mountain Detective Association, is another one of the quiet fellows whose career, if written in detail, would be read with more interest than the ordinary border romance. During 20 years, he has made more than 3,000 arrests, and although he has taken some men dead and had hot fights with others, he has never yet been seriously injured himself. It was he who hunted out the Musgrove band of horse and cattle thieves who had long terrorized the plains, and several of the leaders of whom were afterwards lynched by citizens of Denver in broad daylight. After the more prominent members of the gang had been thus disposed of, Cook and his assistants made preparations to take Ed Franklin, a desperate thief who had until then eluded them. They found him asleep in a saloon at Golden City. He had been drinking, and when Cook placed his hand on his shoulder and told him that he was wanted, he jumped up with an oath. "Come quietly now," said Cook. "Quietly? Not much. No man from Denver can take me," he exclaimed. By this time, he was wide awake and was making rapid passes with his fists at everybody who undertook to come near him. Cook tried to persuade him to go along with the officers, but he paid no attention to him. When the officer produced a pair of handcuffs, Franklin grew livid with rage and said he had some irons himself, drawing his revolvers from beneath his pillow as he said so. Just then, one of the detectives dealt him a blow on the head which cut his scalp and stunned him for a moment. When he recovered, he jumped from his bed into the middle of the room, leaving his revolvers on his pillow, and screamed in his fury, "Come on, all of you. You can kill me, but you can't arrest me. I will not go with you. If you want to shoot, put it there, there, there," and he slapped his hand violently on his heart. Cook told Franklin that no one intended to shoot if he would go along quietly. Maddened by the officer's coolness, the desperado exclaimed, "If you don't shoot, I will. I won't go. I'll die first, but I'll die hard, and 2 or 3 of you will go with me." He made a move to get his revolvers, and that instant, Cook sent a bullet through his heart. One of the most interesting members of the convention was General Porter. Not many of the delegates knew him. The Committee on Resolutions sent in a report on the Indian question, calling upon the Secretary of the Interior to limit all Indians to their respective reservations. The preamble of the resolution recited that either through criminal carelessness or careful criminality, the Indians had done tremendous injury to the stock interest. It was supposed that the resolution would go through without opposition, when a tall, dark-skinned man was seen to rise in the middle of the hall. He caught the chairman's eye and was recognized as General Porter, a Creek chief of Indian Territory. He looked around him for a moment and then said in good English, "I came here as a representative of the cattle industry, but I assume now to represent the American Indian. We are here in America by the will of Almighty God. The Indian preceded you on this continent as the Carboniferous era preceded the present. Today we stand among you on the morning of your growth as a nation, as a few clouds rapidly fading away and soon to disappear utterly from mortal view. We, the lingering remnant of a vanquished race, want to be at least incorporated with you. We know it is the inevitable result, but we must not be destroyed. The United States have in the main treated us well and humanely. We are here to look at one interest, cattle growing. This is an element which has brought the white man and the Indian together. We get along well with each other. The Indian has learned your ways. You have taught him the idea of land ownership, which he never grasped before. You are leading us over the road every people has traveled to civilization. You are doing good Christian work for us while you are doing good for yourselves. If you of Montana and Wyoming would consult with the people of Kansas and the territory, you would get along better with the Indians. Mutual concessions are all that are wanted. We of the nation have no trouble with Texans or Kansans. The resolution under consideration is not one that does credit to the American Indian or to you. I am sensitive on this matter. Anything that touches the Indian touches me deeply. The people of the East believe that the cattlemen are trespassing on us. It is not true. Not true at least as they believe it. Leave these questions to be settled by law and by treaty. Suppose we fight about it. The Eastern people will trample on us both. They will endeavor to protect the Indians, but they will engender a feeling that in the end may destroy us. I move that the preamble of that resolution be stricken out." General Porter's speech took the convention completely by surprise, and his motion was carried with a whoop. Ex-Senator Steve Dorsey made himself conspicuous losing a $1,000 watch presented to him by admiring Republican friends, and the celebrated cowboy brass band from Dodge City, the leader of which beats time with a derringer, was one of the greatest curiosities ever seen here. This story comes from the great state of Georgia, being reported in the Weekly Constitution of December 9th, 1884. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.